Hello and welcome back to Matt Hayes Tottenham blog and today's match preview for the game against Newcastle tomorrow. So what I'm going to be doing is going through my predicted lineup, my predicted scoreline and kind of how I see the game going and where I think we can really hurt Newcastle. Now before I get started I just want to apologise to those people who were watching my live stream. There's an issue with the software I was using there. I'm not sure what it was, but I won't be able to stream today. I'll just have to do this regular video. There's going to be a few links down in my description if you want to check them out. I have my second channel will be linked down there. I'm going to start posting on that pretty soon. And I'm also going to leave my Facebook group and Fantasy Football League down there if anyone wants to go and join those. So we'll just get straight into things and I'll go with my predicted lineup for the game ahead. Now I think obviously in goals it's a no-brainer. We'll see Hugo Lloris. And I do think the defence, the starting 11 is going to stay the same as what we saw against Aston Villa and Manchester City. I think we will see obviously Kyle Walker-Peters starting in right back. Serge Aurier is back in the squad. He was on the bench for the last couple of games, but he just doesn't seem to be Pochettino's main choice at the moment. And there is still a bit of doubt surrounding his future. We may still see him leave the club this summer with the European window still open. So I think Kyle Walker-Peters will keep his place in the side, and deservedly so. It's not just because of the absentees elsewhere. It's because I suppose he has proven himself to be the best choice that we have at the moment in that position. Now in centre-back, I do think it will be Davinson Sanchez and Toby Alderweireld starting again. I hope to see Jan Vertonghen coming on maybe in the second half because we'd like to get him in the team ahead of the North London derby next week. I think him and Alderweireld will be the best options for that. So it will be important to get Alderweireld some game time before that. But I think it will be Sanchez and Alderweireld starting there, which could possibly be better for us because with Newcastle having Joe Linton up front, he's a very, very physical, strong player, and Davinson Sanchez could easily match him in that regard. So I think it may actually be beneficial for us to have Sanchez in that team instead of Vertonghen. In right back, I think again it will be Danny Rose. We thought, well I personally thought with Ben Davies signing that new contract over the summer that he was going to be a much more prominent player in the starting 11, but we haven't seen him at all yet this season. I think he actually wasn't even on the bench against Man City, I'm not sure, but it looks like Danny Rose just is the main option there for Pochettino, and personally I do agree with that. I think he's the better of the two players and I think he will be starting against Newcastle tomorrow. Now where I think we'll see a lot of change in this team is in the midfield roles. With Ndombele being injured, I think we will have to revert to the 4-2-3-1, which is probably better for us because the 4-1-2-1-2 has been it's been quite problematic for us and it has caused a lot of issues. And I don't know if that is because of the personnel or if it's because of the system, but I don't think it's the right time to try and figure it out. I think we need to just get points on the board now and hope that there is a stage maybe later in the season where we're on a good run where we can try and see if it works for us, if it is a case of just poor form at the moment. But I think it is better for us to go to that 4-2-3-1. And it's not the worst thing in the world because at the end of the day, it's the formation we've been playing for the last 3-4 seasons. And I think it will be Winks and Sissoko in the holding midfield positions. And while it does seem a lot weaker than a team that has Tanguy and Ndombele in it, it's ultimately that's the duo that got us to the Champions League final last year. So I'm not worried about that at all. And especially with the lack of attacking threat that Newcastle pose, I think that will be the two will get to push on a lot and play more in the advanced positions, which would suit Winks a lot more than Sissoko. But I would be really happy to see that duo lining up against Newcastle tomorrow. Now the three behind the striker is where the biggest decisions have to be made because at the moment we have Son back from suspension, Ali will face a late fitness test, and Lo Celso has now gotten himself into the first team for the first time coming off the bench against Manchester City. But first of all, judging by Pochettino's comments, I think it was either yesterday or Thursday, with regards to Giovanni Lo Celso, we won't see him starting, and it may just be another 5 or 10 minutes at the end of the game that we see from him. Pochettino was saying Lo Celso was nowhere near the condition that he'd want the player to be at, and he's just not in a situation where he can start a game at the moment because he didn't have a pre-season at all. He only had 3 or 4 days training with Real Betis, mainly because of his involvements in the Copa America with Argentina, but also because for the last week of the window he was trying to get that move to Tottenham through, and he wasn't training with Betis, but obviously he couldn't train with Tottenham because it hadn't been completed yet. So he's in a pretty difficult position at the moment. That he's just playing catch up now, and it will be quite difficult for him, but you'd imagine with the quality of player that he is and obviously what he's shown in the past, he is a very fit, athletic player. So I hope it is only a couple of weeks before he gets to that level where he can play in the starting 11. Now the main options that we would have, I suppose, are Son, Lucas, Lamela, Ericsson and Ali if he passes the fitness test. I don't think he will be starting if he does pass that, but he is someone that we could bring on in the second half that could have a great impact in the game and hopefully cause a lot of problems for Newcastle. But the three that I think we're going to start with First of all, I'd have to say Eric Lamela because of the form he's shown so far. He was one of our better players in pre-season, and I'm saying it even then. I hope he gets more game time this season. But then the impact he made against Aston Villa, winning the ball back from Jack Grealish for the goal that ultimately put us ahead, and then getting a goal and an assist at the Etihad away to Man City. His form is maybe the best we've seen from him since he was at Tottenham, but now it's a case of him making that consistent and not just leaving it at 2 or 3 games and then fading away as he usually does. So I think we'll see him starting. I think Christian Eriksen could be a very important player for us in this game. I know people were very disappointed with his performance against Manchester City, but I think picking an 11 in this game, we need to look more at that performance against Aston Villa, because Villa and Newcastle are much more similar to each other than either of them with Man City. And playing against a team like Newcastle, where they will be more than likely putting 10 men behind the ball and sitting in and trying to soak up as much pressure as they can, a pacey player like Lucas or Son wouldn't be able to impact the game as much because there's no space for them to run into. Whereas Christian Eriksen, he has that creativity where he can unlock the defence in one pass, and he's just more capable of breaking down a defence like that. And even if it is taking a shot from range, we saw that towards the end of last season when we beat Brighton 1-0. We were struggling to break them down for 88 minutes, and all of a sudden Eriksen let fly from 30 yards, and he got us all 3 points, which is what got us into the Champions League. So I think he will be a very key player for us tomorrow. Now, the third player in that area, for me, look, it is between Son and Lucas. And it's a really tough decision because you see Lucas is on such good form at the moment. He was very unfortunate not to start against Man City, but he came on and he got that goal. But Son, returning from suspension, I don't think he's like any other player where he needs match time to get back into the team. He's such an athletic player, and he did it last season, going away in 2 international tournaments and still having the impact that he did have for us. He could be crucial to a game like this. It's a really tough decision between the two, but if I had to go for one, I would probably go with Heung-min Son, because he is a better player ultimately, and I know Lucas again is on great form and he is a fantastic player, but I think Son could be the better option for us. And then of course Harry Kane up front. Now, I'm not really worried about anything on the defensive side of things, because Newcastle just seems so disjointed up front. They have a really good trio in Joe Linton, Miguel Almiron and Alan Saint-Maximin, but like watching them against Norwich last week, there was just no chemistry there at all, and it looked more like 3 individuals up there than a trio of strikers. And I don't think they'll threaten us much at all. I know in games like this we do have a lot of nervy moments. Like against Villa 2 weeks ago, not only did they get that goal, but they had a number of other chances, and that's kind of where we suffer against these smaller teams when they do catch us in the counter-attack. And with the pace of the likes of Saint-Maximin and Almiron, that could potentially be an issue, but I just don't think Newcastle are at a level yet, and I don't think they're good enough where they can do that. And especially with the Steve Bruce setup, it's going to be a lot more focus on those defensive actions, trying to keep Tottenham out, and I think they'll be very, very happy to take a 0-0 draw, but I just don't think they will be able to do that. Their defence, it looked very, very weak against Norwich last weekend, and I know it was Teemu Pukki who scored the 3 goals, who's turning out to be an amazing striker for Norwich in the Premier League, but the goals that he did score, it was down a lot to Newcastle's defence. Like that first one that he scored a volley from the edge of the box off a corner, there was absolutely no marking whatsoever, and you're looking at Norwich. Pukki is probably their only threat at the moment. I know Todd Cantwell scored for them today against Chelsea, but it was from a Pukki assist. But like Pukki scored 28 goals last season, and the fact that they can just leave him unmarked at a corner is awful, and you'd expect Steve Bruce to address something like that, but then he went out and he scored 2 more goals. So Newcastle defensively are in a really, really poor position, but because they will have those numbers back there, it could be difficult for us to break them down. And even if we do get one early goal, I don't think we'll see them come out and try and play to get back into the game. I think with the way they're going at the moment, it could simply be damage limitation no matter when we get our first goal, and that's really worrying for them, and it's why I think they will struggle a lot this season. But it's great for us because it seems that whatever happens in the early parts of the game, we just ultimately will have too much for Newcastle, and it will only be a matter of time before we break them down. Harry Kane, I'm not sure he'll have the biggest impact in the game tomorrow, because again, with all those players Newcastle are going to have in the box, they're going to defend really, really narrow with that back 4. They'll probably all be inside the box, and then their 4 or 5 in front of them will be a bit wider, which will try and nullify the threat of our fullbacks. But it's just not going to work for them, because we just have that ability to pass the ball around, to stay really, really patient, and when one player is out of position or when there's a little gap opening up, we can pick out that key pass and score. Now, if we do get that comfortable win, which we could really get being wrapped up by the hour mark because of just how weak Newcastle are at the moment, I think it would be great to see Lo Celso come on and get maybe 20-25 minutes of game time to get into the team properly. And despite what Pochettino said, I think that is a real possibility. Like, we certainly won't see him from the start of the game, and we certainly won't see him coming on at half time or something, but it would be great to get some game time for him. Coming on against City for that short period of time, it was only about 5 or 10 minutes he was actually on the pitch, and there's no chance for him to impact a game like that, especially like when he did come on, we were just holding out for what we had, which is fair enough, and he was playing in the right mid position as well, which isn't his strongest by any stretch of the imagination. But it would be great to see him come in and get a bit of game time. And similarly to Eriksen, this could be a game that he could affect a lot, with Newcastle potentially purely damage limitation at this stage of the game. He could come on, maybe a few efforts from range or a few passes to unlock that defence, because he's a very similar player to Christian Eriksen. We could see him having a good impact on the game if he comes on. I also look forward to seeing Dele Alli potentially and Heung-min Son coming back from injury and suspension respectively. So it's not just a win that we're looking for tomorrow. There's a bit more that we could see that would be great for us. And I mean, we could potentially need points, because we've already seen Chelsea pick up their first 3 points of the season today. Manchester United playing Crystal Palace, you imagine they'd be comfortable. There is a good chance for us, well, not really a good chance for us, but there's one of the top 6 are going to drop points, with Liverpool playing Arsenal later on today. It's always good for us when those teams play against each other. So we can hope that, a draw there would be ideal for us, both teams dropping 2 points. But if not, I mean, I think Liverpool and Arsenal will both be in and around us this season, so I can't really pick one team or the other that I'd prefer to win that game if one of them had to. But a draw will be outstanding for us. And Manchester City are playing away to Bournemouth tomorrow, so you'd imagine that'll be a comfortable 3 points for them, responding to that draw against Tottenham last week. But look, it's all down to what we do, and I think it will be a comfortable maybe 3 or 4-0 win for us tomorrow. So that's all I have time for this video. If you have enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up. And if you want more content like this, plus interactive live streams, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below and press the notification bell so you get notified whenever I upload. Thanks for watching.